Chosen People Ministry. It's Olivier Melnick. He's going to be coming and speaking to us. Is it Friends of Israel or Chosen People?
Chosen People.
Chosen People. The Chosen People Ministries. And, no problem. And he is a grad of Moody and Dallas Theological Seminary, and his focus there at Chosen People is to focus on anti-Semitism. So his next talk today is going to be the normalization of anti-Semitism. The longest hatred becomes the new normal. And in some ways, you wish that you could educate on that and eradicate it, right? And you'll probably have job security until the Lord comes, sadly. But
well, thank you for giving me this great honor and privilege to share with such a group of people. I love the Pre-Trib. I come here anytime I can, every year that I can. And actually, it's been easier for us because we used to live in Seattle, and 2.5 years ago we defected, and we moved to Rockwall, Texas. So now, so there you have it. Now we're in Texas, and we love being in Texas. We just love it. And so I want to tell you, I have a table in the back, and the book that is connected to the message I'm doing today is my newest book, The Normalization of Antisemitism, When the Oldest Hatred Becomes the New Normal. That's the one you want to grab if you want to get a little more in-depth of what I'm going to try to cover in the time that we have. And if you want to get a good foundation for what I'm going to be talking about today, that would actually take you back, well, 2,000 years, you would want to have to look at the new anti-Semitism, end times anti-Semitism, a new chapter in The Longest Hatred, which gives you an overview of the history of anti-Semitism, pretty much from the biblical days to the global jihad to today. So with those two, you'd be able to learn a lot about what's going on. Frankly, where we are today, I've been a believer for 40 years, and where we are today, I never thought I would experience in my lifetime. I come from a Jewish family from France. My mother is a Holocaust survivor, was a Holocaust survivor, so I grew up with that background in our family, and that story about what she went through when she lost her dad when he was taken by the Gestapo. And I heard all those stories, and I started looking at this 23 years ago when I started studying and writing and teaching and doing conferences on the topic. And I used to tell people, this is where we're going, and they look at me going like, you're pushing it. Well, I wish I was. I didn't think that we would be where we are today. So what I want to do today is I want to walk you through what I think are the 10 steps. They're not really steps or stages because some of them overlap, some of them continue when the other one comes in. But the 10 aspects, I should say, of the normalization of anti-Semitism. But before I do that, I want to set the stage for something. I want to show you a movie. So we're going to dim the lights right now, and I'm going to show you a little movie that is going to tell you. It's going to set the stage. It's going to give you a message, and we'll pick up from that. So let's watch this first.
This dream has haunted me for decades. There are some things that time does not erase. Sometimes the only way forward is by facing the past. This is my story. lived in Germany during the Nazi Holocaust. A railroad track ran behind our small church, and each Sunday morning at the exact same time, we heard the whistle from a distance and then the clacking of the wheels moving over the track. It was at the same time every Sunday. We felt the rattling from the trail of cattle cars, accompanied by the screeching of metal that would echo through our church walls. It was a Sunday in the spring that would change my life forever.
Jesus said, "Do not resist an evildoer. But if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. Loving your enemy. This is a far better way. This is how we were called to live. To understand this unnatural virtue, we must look to Jesus Christ as our model and our guide." His meekness was his strength. His silence, his statement to the world. We must pray for those who persecute us. Prayer is the mechanism that reaches heaven and moves mankind. Prayer. It's easy to underestimate prayer. But this quiet action Christ is the Prince of Peace. And as we better come to know Jesus, we learn to choose as He chooses. We learn to love our enemies and allow God's peace to rule within our hearts. Jesus, unser Trost und Leben, näher dem Tode war ergeben. Sieg und Leben wiederbrachst. Er
Wie heißt du? Wie heißt du?
Du, verschwinde! Verschwinde!
Sorry.
Years have passed and no one talks about it much anymore. I still hear that train whistle in my sleep. I can still hear him crying out for help. God forgive all of us who called ourselves Christians yet did nothing to intervene.
This is not easy to watch. And by the way, this movie is, the story takes place in Germany, but let me make something clear. This is not just Germany. It took place in France, in Spain, in Italy, in Eastern Europe. A lot of Christians just decided to just sing a little louder. May we never be in a position to sing a little louder over what's happening right now. We cannot afford that. Let me pray and I'll get into the message. Lord, thank you so much for this opportunity to that you've given me to share the burden that you've given me to equip the body of Messiah with the understanding of history and how we can make a difference today, not only to come to the rescue of Jewish people, but also for your kingdom by loving Jewish people with the love of Messiah and making the difference. So, Lord, help us being equipped and understanding where we are and where we know where we're going. But in the process, Lord, we want to make a difference. We want to speak up. We want to stand up. So help us, Lord, in Yeshua's name. Amen. So I always like to start with definitions. And a definition is, my definition of anti-Semitism is, in the key two words here. The two words are very important: irrational and demonic. Anti-Semitism is the irrational and demonic hatred of the Jewish people and of Israel, characterized by thoughts, words, and or deeds against them. I have probably close to 500 books on that topic in my library. All of them are very, very good. Different levels of what the word I'm looking for, scholarly work, but they're all very good. But they all, every single one of them, miss the main point. Anti-Semitism is satanic. It's demonic. This is Satan's creation to get rid of the Jews so they cannot call on Yeshua for him to return at the end of the tribulation. So, but we can make a difference. But I wanted to start with that definition, because if you not understand the demonic, satanic aspect of anti-Semitism, you're missing the whole point. And irrational, which is actually, when you think about it, only Satan can make the irrational look and sound rational. Otherwise, how would you have a radical leftist and a radical Muslim, two opposite sides on the ideological spectrum? How would you have those two agree to work hand in hand against Israel? It's irrational, but that's because it's coming from Satan. So definition of anti-Semitism, definition of normalization. Normalization is a neutral word, so to speak. It can be good or bad. Neutralization is the process by which something previously considered abnormal or unacceptable becomes perceived as normal. And that's where we are with anti-Semitism today. We are in a place where it has become the new normal for people. And since October 7th, we've turned another corner. And there's no coming back from this. The beast is out of the box. The beast is out of the open. Anti-Semitism is not going back anywhere. It's full force. Why? Because Satan knows his days are numbered. He's going to try to push really hard. He failed. His attempt at stopping the first coming failed. He's going to try as hard as he can to stop the second coming. And guess what? He's going to fail. Because Jeremiah 31, 35, 37, God said he would never forsake Israel. He will never allow for Israel to be destroyed. We can count the stars, the moon, the sun, measure the universe. God will never forsake Israel. There will be casualties. I mean, we know about those casualties from the Bible because we know that 2/3 of the Jewish people will perish. That's tragic. But there are things that we can do, and that's what I want to concentrate on for the rest of this time. I want to show you the steps. And what's interesting is that when I wrote my book, when it came out in I think it was February of this year, I had 9 of the 10 steps covered. I said, this is all in place. The only one that is actually not in place is step number 10. And friends, since October 7, step number 10, you can do a check mark on that one too. So let's go through. Let me first of all, let me give you. I look at 6 different timelines or markers on the timeline of anti-Semitism from biblical days in the early Ante-Nicene church fathers, theological anti-Judaism. That's how it started. Then became classical anti-Semitism, then racial anti-Semitism, then the Holocaust, which is a defining moment in Jewish history. You can speak of Jewish history pre-Holocaust and post-Holocaust. A lot of books look at it this way. Then the new anti-Semitism, then end times anti-Semitism, and one more that we will not experience, but that we know is coming, is tribulation anti-Semitism. The worst of them all. Well, this is where we are right now. End times anti-Semitism. We're right there. So the clock is ticking. So theological anti-Judaism from the biblical account to the Dark Ages. Classical anti-Semitism from the Dark Ages to post-World War I. Racial anti-Semitism, the Holocaust years, 33 to 45. New anti-Semitism, post-Holocaust to today. So we're in the new anti-Semitism. But to be more precise, we are, end times anti-Semitism is where we are right now, 2012 to today. And of course, tribulation, the last 7 years, we be more precise, the last second half of the tribulation, really, if you want to be precise, but you know, the time of Jacob's trouble. And 2012, some of you might wonder why 2012, an event took place in France in 2012 where a Muslim young man went into a Jewish day school and killed a rabbi and 3 children. And that really started the momentum for killing Jews again. So I see end times anti-Semitism where we start to see the killing of Jews again. Of course, 2015, the kosher supermarket, a few blocks from where my house used to be in Paris. I used to go to that supermarket. And then the different events in, you know, the Pittsburgh synagogue in the United States. I think it was 2018, and then the San Diego synagogue, and all those events. So of course that's before October 7th. So that's why I put 2012 as the starting point of the end times anti-Semitism, and I develop it fully in the book, is when Jewish people are again being killed for being Jewish. And of course we are now picking up some momentum on that. So here's a question. Can another Holocaust happen? Well, you know, let me look at a definition that I got from Simon Wiesenthal in Everyday Remembrance Day, A Chronicle of Jewish Martyrdom. He gave in his book 6 major causes for to set the stage so that a Holocaust could happen again. You tell me. Number 1, we need hatred. I wonder. No, we live in a perfect world, right? There's no hatred. We all sing Kumbaya, we all love one another. So hatred is there. Bigotry, prejudice, absolutely. Dictatorship, 1, a few, or many. Well, yeah, I mean, we could even discuss America right now, but you know, I'm not going to go there. But dictatorship. 3, bureaucracy, a rigid hierarchy of bureau chief, petty officials, leading to the attitude of the I was just following orders. So this also exists. 4, technology. Duh. I mean, technology is, it's moving so fast. To provide the practical instrument for mass murder, mass identification, localization of people, moving them around, and kind of like what happened during the war, but on steroids during the Second World War. 5, a crisis, like a war, an opportune moment to act on the hatred, a global crisis. I can't think of any global crisis in the last few years. A minority, number 6, a minority or scapegoat to be demonized, leading to an ethnic cleansing. Well, that minority, of course, is my people, the Jewish people. So the question is, the next Holocaust, we're looking at the timeline, 1960s, probably not. That was not on people's radar. No, probably not. No. In the 2000s, it was possible. 2023? Yes. Yes, if we don't do anything. I mean, God will not allow for all Jewish people, for Israel to be destroyed, but the Holocaust killed 6 million. It was a third of the Jewish people. So we have to wake up. We have to wake up. I keep thinking about this singing a little louder. I mean, there's a lot of people right now that are doing that. They're singing a little louder or looking the other way. We can't do this. Let's look at this. That's another. We don't have to dim the lights for this. This is in Florida. I think in January or February of this year. This man is the leader. Not this man walking. This man is a Jewish man crossing the street. You'll see. I'll play a very quick clip, and I'll tell you what he says if it's not clear. But this man is looking at him, and the man insulting him is the founder and leader of the Goyim Defense League. Anybody heard of that organization? A very anti-Semitic organization that actually creates flyers and puts them on people's lawn in Jewish neighborhood. You might have seen pictures on the networks, on the social networks. And this guy, I forgot his name, but he'll go on street corners in Jewish neighborhoods and he'll insult Jews and he'll do the Heil Hitler. And let's see if you can hear what he says here. Hold on.
Do you think you should be put in an oven? Are you Jewish? Oh my God. Leave our country, go back to Israel. You know where you bomb Palestinian kids? Where we fund you stupid Jews? $8 billion a year? You look like a horse. You look like a Jewish horse. Look at the horse face on this Jew. Horse face Jew. Horse face.
So this is what he was saying. Do you think you should be put in ovens? Leave our country, go back to Israel, where you bomb Palestinian kids. That's some of the statements that man was saying to that Jewish man. And I had to edit this clip because I could have not played it here if I did not edit it. One more here, and then we'll be done with the clips. This happened after October 7th in Australia. Some of you probably already know that. I can't take any longer. I just can't take this. Gas the Jews. 2023. Gas the Jews. So let me walk you through the 10 steps of the normalization of anti-Semitism. Here they are. Apathy, lack of education, low or incorrect reporting, desensitization, lack of accountability, empowerment, demonization of the defenders, persecution of Jews and defenders, encouragement to kill, and mass murder of Jews. Until October 7th, I would have told you that 9 were in place. As of right now, 10. 10 are in place. So let's walk through each one of them. 10 out of 10. So number 1, apathy. Well, that movie showed a little bit, it's more than, the first movie, it's more than apathy. But we're seeing right now people, and I talk to people all the time, they don't seem to care about anti-Semitism. By the way, I failed to mention that my slides, at the end of the presentation, I'll give you a way to connect with me and get the slides. So don't take notes. listen. I don't think the slides are on the page for the pre-trib, but I will give you the whole PDF of the slides. Don't worry about it. It's all for you. I want you to have all that stuff. So people, unless they're directly affected through someone they know, they just don't do anything. It's not on their radar. Anti-Semitism is not on most Christians' radars. It's just scary. When people don't care, they don't respond or react. I saw something online the other day, and friends, it's going to sound a little harsh, but I believe that we have to really take this in consideration. It was at the beginning of the war, and it was a statement that said, if your church has not mentioned Israel in the last 3 weeks, it is time to find another church. This is where we are. When people don't care, they don't respond, they don't react. Here is a comparison since October 7th, when the Hamas war started. 3,700, I got this about 2 weeks ago, so it's more. It's got more. 3,700, almost 3,800 demonstrations in solidarity of Palestinians, and 529 demonstrations supporting Israel, and 95 neutral. How can you be neutral in this? I don't know, but, whatever. And I've give you the source on each of the slides so you can look it up yourself. 3,800 to 500. And in the solidarity for Palestinians, as you've seen, a lot of them are solidarity with Hamas. This is very scary. So apathy. So I'm going to try to also, I'm not just going to ring, sound the alarm and say we're doomed. I'm going to try to give you some steps towards a solution, because if you don't come up with some kind of an idea of how to go towards a solution, then what's the point? This is a picture of Martin Niemöller. Most of you probably know who he is. He was a German pastor during the Second World War. But if people continue being apathetic toward anti-Semitism, they will miss the greater danger looming over other communities. If you think that the enemy is going to stop with the Jews, you're fooling yourself. You've seen this. I know it's been used and overused, but it still works for me. At the quote from Martin Niemöller: first they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. We have to speak out. 1 John 3:17-18, but whoever has the world's goods and sees his brother in need and closes his heart against him, how does the love of God abide in him? Little children, let us not love with word or with tongue, but in deed and truth. This is time, my friends, for Christians to put their money where their mouth is. I'm finding out, this is not in the notes, so this is free. So this is not part of the notes. And I'm famous for going on rabbit trails. So rabbit trail number 1. I'm finding out in my old age that the vast majority of Christians who love Israel seem to love Israel academically, biblically, theologically, but not in a human connection aspect. So we understand the God's plan for Israel. God loves the Jews, but what can we do now today to make a difference? And this is the direction I want to go with this message. I want you to keep this in the back of your mind, because I know I know this crowd. You are passionate for biblical truth. You're passionate for Israel and the Jewish people, and I know that you want to make a difference. So bear with me, because that's where we're going. But keep that in the back of your mind. James 4:17, therefore to one who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, to him it is sin. Number 2, no booing, okay? We're not here for character assassination. If you have to boo, do it inside your head. But I'm using people, and I'm using their own words, okay? So Whoopi Goldberg is still convinced that the Holocaust was not about race, but rather it was a white-on-white crime. Well, go back and ask Hitler if he was not using the now debunked pseudoscience of eugenics to find the Jews and measure the nose and the forehead and the color of the skin and everything. It was all about race, at least for Hitler. Anti-Semitism did not happen in a vacuum. Most people are unaware of the key players. And there are many different groups within that arena. The victims, the perpetrators, the co-perpetrators, the bystanders, and the rescuers. We do not want to repeat being bystanders. 80 years ago, many Christians were bystanders. And a bystander who does nothing only facilitates the work of a perpetrator. We cannot be bystanders, and we cannot sing a little louder. According to a Pew Research survey, 84% of Americans still do not know what the term BDS means: boycott, divestment, and sanction. Many Christians are in denial regarding Martin Luther's anti-Semitic diatribes at the end of his life. By the way, BDS, I want to show of hand. How many of you have heard BDS, boycott, divestment, sanction? This is a well-educated crowd. Here's a tip. When BDS tells you do not buy Israeli products, do not support Israel, that's their whole thing. Go to the BDS website, bdsmovement.org. Find the tab about the stuff you're not supposed to buy and support Israel. Buy them all. They've done the work for you. It's all there. Some of the words of Martin Luther: first, to set fire to the synagogues or schools. This is to be done in honor of our Lord and of Christendom, so that God might see that we are Christians. And now you're wondering why my people won't set foot in a church? I'm not saying that you agree with this, but as Christians, we carry that baggage. It's not ours by choice, but it's ours by heritage as being part of the Christian family, the family of God. You have to be aware of that. Second, I advise that their houses be razed and destroyed. Third, I advise that all their prayer books and Talmudic writings in which such idolatry, lies, cursing, and blasphemy are taught to be taken from them. So, and it goes on and on. I just want to give you a little excerpt. Most Christians have never heard also of the 1920 San Remo Conference, which was more legally defining for more modern Israel than the 1947 UN vote for the partition of British Mandate Palestine or the Balfour Declaration. They all worked together, but that San Remo Conference was really critical to the rebirth of Israel, outside of God's providence, of course. How can an unknown enemy be fought? We need to know the enemy. Students across the world, lately you've seen it a lot. I mean, it didn't start on October 7th, okay? It's been made public on October 7th because now it's all on all the news network. I have never seen the word anti-Semitism show up on my TV more than in the last 2 months, ever, in 23 years. Absolutely crazy. From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, thinking that they're promoting social justice when in fact they're promoting genocide. Now, if somebody tells you this and you visit a church, you talk to somebody and they say, you know, I like that statement, from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. Ask him what river. I don't know. The river to the sea. What sea? I don't know. They no clue. It's like social justice. They don't have a clue what they're talking about. But that's genocide. That's what they want. So here's a great way to determine what is anti-Semitic and what is not. This is Natan Sharansky. I don't know if okay, his name is on top. Okay. The 3 Ds of Anti-Semitism of Natan Sharansky, Russian human rights activist and chairman of the Jewish Agency from 2009 to 2018. He helped organize the Aliyah movement, the modern Aliyah movement in the last few decades. And he has the 3 Ds of anti-Semitism. If anything fits any of those or a combination of those, it's anti-Semitic. And in his own words, the first D is the test of demonization. When the Jewish state is being demonized, when Israel's actions are blown out of all sensible proportion, when comparisons are made between Israelis and Nazis and between Palestinian refugee camps and Auschwitz, this is anti-Semitism, not legitimate criticism of Israel. The second D is the test of double standards. When criticism of Israel is applied selectively, when Israel is singled out by the United Nations for human rights abuses, while the behavior of known and major abusers such as China, Iran, Cuba, Syria is ignored. When Israel's Magen David Adom alone among the world's ambulance services is denied admission to the International Red Cross, this is anti-Semitism. The third D is the test of delegitimization. When Israel's fundamental right to exist is denied alone among all peoples in the world, this too is anti-Semitism. So you look at those three. Demonization, double standard, and delegitimization. And if any of what you see falls through in any of those categories, it is anti-Semitism. And that includes, friends, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm anti-Zionist. Same difference. I have yet to meet one anti-Zionist who's not an anti-Semite. It's just a different word. Number 3, low or incorrect reporting. In January 2022, and I was there reporting for Chosen People Ministries. I was doing a video there when it happened. It was very cold that day, by the way. I remember that. In Colleyville, Texas, not too far from here, a hostage situation at a synagogue by a Muslim man was initially declared not anti-Semitic by the local FBI director. It's not anti-Semitic. There's a Muslim man who walked into a synagogue on Shabbat, gunpoint to the rabbi, and it's not anti-Semitic. It was just a kind of a fluke, it happened on that day. Well, the FBI changed its story after pressure from the Jewish community pretty quickly, within, I think, a day or two. It gets worse. May 2022 in Lyon, France, 90-year-old Jewish man René Adjaj was pushed out from his 17th story window by a neighbor. The authorities initially saw no reason to suspect anti-Semitism. How about this? February 2023, the Palestinian Campaign for the Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel used a photo they labeled 1948 Tentura Massacre. Now, the Tentura Massacre was a real battle that took place in 1948 where Jews fought with Arabs, and a certain amount of Arabs, I think it's a couple hundred, died in the process. It did happen. It was part of the war. The photo has been verified to be from the Nordhausen concentration camp in Germany. So this was a picture from maybe 5-6 years prior to that, taken in Germany and used not to illustrate. They were saying this picture was taken recently. It was a picture of, not recently, but it was a picture of the Tentura Massacre. It was fake news. But people don't check anymore, and it's so hard to really get the right news anymore. But this was just used the wrong way. So Palestinian propaganda will use anything to promote their narrative, a double lie, which I find very ironic, denying the Holocaust while using archival Holocaust pictures to illustrate a false narrative. They'll deny the Holocaust. You know that Mahmoud Abbas did his PhD on Holocaust denial. So on one side of his mouth he's saying the Holocaust never happened, and on the other side he's saying, and it will happen again on the Jews. But it never happened. But there's going to be another one. Doesn't make any sense. Why? Look at this, and I got this. It's like a little poster I got, but the numbers have changed, of course. Why are the hostages not mentioned here? Israel-Gaza war. No mention of hostages. Nowhere. And by the way, early on during the war, they were saying 1,400, Israel was saying 1,400 victims of that horrible massacre. And then within a few weeks, once they were able to collect the DNA and match the bodies, which had been probably a gruesome project, to say the least, they brought it down to 1,200. Said, no, it's only 1,200. It's bad. 1,200 is terrible. But they had the decency to say, we said 1,400, it's only 1,200. The other side inflate the numbers, and they lie all the time. This is just, it's really, I got more to show you. You're not going to like it. No mention of Israeli losses here in those things, and this is from the Euromed Human Rights Monitor. Not worth your time, but that's what the world is looking for. They're looking for something that is going to feed their understanding of the Middle East crisis, and they don't check facts. Look at this guy, Palestinian actor, influencer Saleh Al-Jafarawi. Since October 7, Okay, since the beginning of the war, he was badly wounded, and pictures of him for everything. He was badly wounded, he became a radiologist, he became a foreign correspondent, he sired a fake plastic child, he lost his child in a bombing, he became a tour guide, and he died twice. That's him. This is known as Pallywood, Palestinian fake reporting to garner the world sympathy. And the world is paying attention to this and looking the other way on the real stuff that's happening against the Jewish people. Now, let me say this about that. I've said some very negative, true, very negative things about Palestinians. The one thing that I do not want to be accused of, and none of us should want to be accused of that, is to paint with broad strokes. Not every single Palestinian supports Hamas. Not every single Palestinian is a terrorist, just like not every single German during the war was a Nazi. There were Germans who actually went to help the Jews. There were Poles who actually helped the Jews. There were French people who helped the Jews. A couple of them helped my mother hide on their farm after her father died in Auschwitz, and they became righteous among the nations. And they are listed at Yad Vashem. So we don't want to paint with broad strokes. Same with the Palestinian. But about 75% of the Palestinians voted for Hamas. So not all Palestinians, we should never paint with broad strokes, but many of them. And they, even those who voted for Hamas and supported Hamas to this day, are the first victims of Hamas and the first victims of radical Islam. The Palestinians, as much as the Jews, need Yeshua. I hope we understand that. When you're a victim of anti-Semitism or witness it, report it to the authorities, the media, the Jewish advocacy groups such as the Maccabee Task Force, Stand With Us, Canary Mission, Moment Magazine Anti-Semitism Monitor, and the Committee for, and the last one is really good, the Committee for Accuracy in Middle East Reporting in America. It's called CAMRA. I have their website at the end of my slide presentation. Silence is complicity, friends. Remember that. Desensitization. Desensitization is a diminished emotional response to a negative or positive stimulus. Desensitization can come from both friends and foes. It's expected from foes, but what about when it comes from friends? I have a challenge for you. Some of you might be on one side of the fence, some of you might be on the other side of the fence. When you hear a Jewish joke, privately, tell the person, it's not funny. When you hear that Jewish people like money, because, we're greedy. We like money. There's a reason for that, by the way, historically, which is something that has to do with a part of history that we're not responsible for, but it's in this book. When you hear Jewish jokes that paint stereotypes, tell the people, but you have to tell them, quickly, privately, and lovingly. I used to ignore those jokes. I've even heard, since I've been here, a few comments that I would prefer not hear about Jewish people. People, that's part of desensitization. I remember being at my home church back in the days in the Northwest. Years ago, I was a rather new believer, and I was talking to the evangelism pastor, who was a dear friend of mine. It was a Wednesday night. I was sitting next to him in the front of the church, and the senior pastor was preaching. I forgot what passage he was preaching on, but I remember something he said very clearly. And I had just told my friend, the evangelism pastor, we need to be careful about how we present things. We need to speak and preach the truth, but there's a way to do it. And he goes, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, Christians can be insensitive, and sometimes they say things they don't think it's going to be offensive to Jewish people. And here's the senior pastor pacing the stage and going, now, I want you to paint the picture here. I want to set the stage. The Jews were just finished killing Christ. And then he went on. And I went like this to my pastor friend next to me, and he looked at me and go, what? Whew. He was not anti-Semitic. I knew him. My senior pastor was not anti-Semitic. They were completely insensitive. We have to be careful, because that's part of the normalization of anti-Semitism. When we're so insensitive to Jewish needs and understanding the Jewish history and Jewish psyche, I'm not saying we need to compromise the gospel. I would never do that. but we need to contextualize the gospel, and we need to be sensitive to Jewish people. Otherwise, our voices will not be heard. And if our voices cannot be heard, our actions will not be able to follow. Number 5, no accountability. I have no idea if I'm doing on time. Am I doing okay? What time am I supposed to be done? 2 days ago?
Around
3-ish? Okay. Okay, so you're going to have to listen faster. May 2017 in Paris, France. This is terrible. Every time I think of this, I think we live in an upside-down world. Retired Jewish doctor Sarah Halimi was thrown out of a second-floor window by her neighbor Kolibi Traoré, screaming Allah Akbar. And that is him on the picture here. In 2021, 4 years later, Halimi's killer was not even put on trial. After the French court, which is like the French Supreme Court, called the Cour de Cassation, deemed him not responsible since he was high on cannabis when he acted. Not even a trial, not even like, okay, a trial, and he was, okay, he's not guilty, let him walk. They say, it's not even worth doing a trial, just let him be. He's free, he's walking. But here's something you need to know. In France, if you throw your dog or your cat through the window, you get up to 2 years in prison and 50,000 euros penalty, a fine. So what the Jewish community of France in 2021 got as a message is, throw a Jew through the window, it's okay, but don't throw your dog. So the Jewish life is less than the life of a dog. That's the message we're getting. You can't get any other message. This man walked free. He was not even going on trial. 2023, Los Angeles, that's like around the corner. It just happened at a pro-Israel, pro-Palestine rally. 69-year-old Jewish man Paul Kessler, and you've seen it on the news probably, died in the hospital after falling on his head as a result of being hit with a megaphone by this man, Loé Ahaji. I hope I say his name properly. And it was, people made it sound like it was like it happened. It was not an accident, but there was really no malice. Well, this is the man who hit him, and I got 2 frames of what he was saying because I didn't catch the video, but see what he was saying. If someone asked me to condemn Hamas, I would say, what's the rush? So he's not condemning Hamas. So, he's the one who's suspected of hitting Paul Kessler. He was under investigation. I haven't followed clearly what happened to him in the last few days, but as of when I did that, it was still under investigation. But the man supports Hamas, and you do a search on his Twitter feed, and he clearly shows support for Hamas. So there's no accountability. That's also part of the normalization of anti-Semitism. There were a couple of committees that were put together. The U.S. Bipartisan Task Force requested by Congress in 2022 to identify the problem, to form committees, to discuss strategy, to gather statistics, and they're good at that. Implement very little and enforce even less. That's the reality. 2023, the White House Strategy to Combat Anti-Semitism, 78 pages. I have a copy of it. It's pretty well written. It identifies the problem to an extent. Again, it encourages people to form committees and to discuss what strategy, and they gathered a bunch of numbers and statistics. But will they implement anything? Will they enforce anything? I haven't seen anything concrete yet. Again, same slide that I showed you before, toward a solution. When you're a victim of anti-Semitism or witness it, report it to those groups that I have mentioned to you earlier. I want to keep moving here. 6, empowerment. The result of the lack of accountability is the empowerment of the perpetrators and an increase in anti-Semitic crimes. That's where we're going towards what's happening right now. According to the ADL, anti-Semitic incidents reached an all-time high in 2021, 34% increase over 2020. Attacks against synagogue increased by 61%. 2022 broke the 2021 record. Since October 7, 2023, the uptick in anti-Semitism, USA up 500%, United Kingdom up 1,300%. Austria up 300%, Germany up 240%. Those numbers are 2 weeks old, they're probably higher. And it's from the ADL. Now the ADL, you got to be careful, okay? The ADL, you got to take some of what they say with a grain of salt. They can be a little pushy. They're also very liberal. But I've seen in their statistics and their numbers, usually they do their research. So I like to use their numbers, not necessarily their conclusions or their liberal commentary. When you're made aware of the empowerment of anti-Semites, don't let them intimidate you. Know the law so you can warn people. Report the culprits to the authorities or to the press. Don't believe that you are powerless. Don't believe that you're powerless. One person can make a difference. Demonization of the defenders. The current polarization of America makes it very difficult to dialogue or speak up to defend people. And it's gotten even worse now since the war. Civility seems to be a thing of the past. Those who choose to defend the victims of anti-Semitism are exposing themselves. And I am going to challenge you at the end of my presentation to do something that you probably maybe never thought of before. And that will probably hit that point right there, that in coming being friendly to your Jewish friends, Jewish neighbors, Jewish co-workers, you are exposing yourself to those who hate the Jews. That's the demonization of the defenders. But we must take a side and defend it. At the same time, be aware of siding with Israel. It's a risk, but that's where we are. Just remember this. Those who hid Anne Frank were breaking the law. Those who killed her were following the law. Which side do you want to be on? Increased persecution of Jews. Starting in the mid-30s, the persecution of Jews was mandated, encouraged, and even rewarded. Persecution can be physical or verbal. Paris, December 2022, a TV guest is publicly criticized on the set of a news set when they were exchanging, doing commentary, and this Jewish man was wearing his yarmulke, like me. By the way, little parenthesis, little rabbit trail. Probably half of you here are wondering, how in the world does he keep it on? Velcro. It fits on the hair and you press it and it sticks. And Jewish men are not bald, so we can always, that's not true. But it is Velcro. It is Velcro. I know. That's the most question he had was about my yarmulke. Well, this man was on news, and then the lady next to him, she said, I wish you wouldn't wear your yarmulke in public on a TV set, because keep your Jewishness to your home. And the guy's answer, it's in French, I didn't want to show it to you, but the guy's answer was like, my name is Cohen. I live in Israel. I wear this you think I wear it for you? I wear it all the time. He was good. He was, punchy. That was perfect. But that's the kind of little persecution that you see, verbal or physical. It can be either way. And 2022, we'll keep moving here. 2022, 9 UC Berkeley law schools decide to develop a Jewish-free zone on campus. The move was very reminiscent of what we remember as Judenfrei Nazi Germany, going from place to place and getting rid of all the Jew and making and claiming that village was Judenfrei, free of Jews. Some of the language used by the law schools was also very concerning. In the interest, and I quote them, in the interest of protecting the safety and welfare of Palestinian students on campus, this organization, it was like 9 different ones, so they insert the name here, will not invite speakers that have expressed and continued to hold views or host, sponsor, promote events in support of Zionism, the apartheid state of Israel, and the occupation of Palestine. So that's, what's interesting is that one of those law schools, the dean of the law school is Jewish. So he was not allowed to go to his own, of course he was allowed, but that's the irrationality of this whole thing. The dean, he was not in favor of it, but he was in charge of the school, and so they've been pushing for a Jew-free zone on the very conservative campus of Berkeley. About this, you've heard about this, the pogrom in Dagestan after the war. This was in an airport, and in the video it's crazy. You see people pushing doors, breaking furniture in an airport. Muslim Republic of Southern Russia, a mob of angry men stormed the airport looking for Jews on a landing plane from Tel Aviv. And this was a pogrom. Pogroms is what my great-grandmother, Rachel Shimkovitz, fled in the 1800s to save her life. And my family immigrated from Russia to France. This was a government-organized riot. Police-organized riot. A pogrom is an organized riot against an ethnic group. That's exactly what took place in the airport in Dagestan just a few weeks ago. A pogrom. So I want to talk the solution here, and I'm going to ruffle some feathers, but that won't be the first time. I want to talk about the Daniel approach. And I just noticed that you guys have water here. This is good. Daniel approach. Daniel 3:16-18. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to give you an answer concerning this matter. They're not going to worship the statue. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the furnace of blazing fire, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. Here is the key verse. But even if he does not, let it be known to you, O king, that we are not going to serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. Politely, they declined to do anything that Nebuchadnezzar wanted them to do, and they said, our God will come to our rescue, and if he doesn't, he's still our God. Daniel's my hero. Daniel's not there. This is the three friends here. But Daniel, throughout the book, he is my hero. He is the one I want to talk to after I meet Yeshua. He is the one I want to talk to when we get to heaven. My hero, Daniel. He's the one. And what we see here, and this is not an invitation or a promotion that I'm about to share with you, but this is a reality that we have to face, that we might come to a place in a not so distant future when, as Christians, as Bible-believing Christians, we might have to commit civil disobedience. Okay? And I usually take the credit for it because he's never in the room, but since he's in the room today, I'll give the credit to who it's due. I stole this from Andy Woods. So I cannot take the credit today. I always give him credit. But I got this from his class on Daniel, actually, which is really, really good. I'm using it to teach at my church and on Zoom. And those are 4 points and I've been looking at those, and it makes sense. Again, this is not an invitation to commit civil disobedience, but this is it. When we get to that place, how do we handle it? There must be a crystal clear conflict between the laws of man and the laws of God. Let me give you an example. Middle of the night, somebody knocks on your door. Your wife is pregnant, and they say, we're going to take your wife, we're going to have her have an abortion, we'll pay for everything, she'll return in a couple of days. And that's a modern-day example of the law of man versus the law of God. Number 2, there must be an exhaustion of all creative legal remedies. Civil disobedience must always be the last resort for believers. Try everything else, but be aware that nothing might work. Number 3, there must be a willingness, that's the reality, a willingness for consequences. How far are you going to go? And number 4, maintaining a respect of civil authorities. All throughout the book of Daniel, the 3 boys, the 3 friends, and Daniel, always very polite. Respectful, firm. No, we decline, we'd rather not, but respectful. So those are good principles that I think are a very good way to look at civil disobedience. I want to talk about Kanye West for a second because that's important. Not that I care about anything he's doing, but Kanye West, okay, good. I'm going to wrap it up very quickly. Kanye West diatribe a few months ago. I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people, it was his way of saying, I'm just going to eradicate, I want to kill a bunch of Jews. It went downhill after that. He lost a lot of contracts. He got in a lot of trouble. But that's not the point I want to bring up to you is, first of all, he had 30 million followers, which of course is very influences a lot of young people who have no clue about anything. So that's dangerous. But what I really don't like is the support and defense of other celebrity like this woman that I really respected, not anymore, but I respected her very much, this young African-American woman, Candace Owens. And she, I don't know if I have the, yeah. She said, if you're an honest person, you did not think this tweet was anti-Semitic. You didn't think that he wrote this tweet because he hates or wants to genocide the Jewish people. This does not represent the beginning of the Holocaust. Okay, Candace, let me explain something to you. Luther did not look forward to Hitler. But Hitler looked back at Luther saying, I'm just finishing the job. Kanye is not looking forward to whoever that is. But whoever that is going to look back and say, hey, you know what he said? I like what he said. Let's finish the job. So Candace Owens needs a little lesson in history. CUNY, it's a New York University commencement ceremony. This Muslim woman, Fatima Musa Mohammed. I want to celebrate CUNY Law as one of the few, if not the only law school to make a public statement defending the rights of its students to organize and speak out against Israeli settler colonialism. This is the law school that passed and endorsed BDS on a student and faculty level. And she continued, Israel continues to indiscriminately rain bullets and bombs on worshippers, murdering the old, the young, attacking even funerals and graveyards as it encourages lynch mobs to target Palestinian homes and businesses, as it imprisons its children, as it continues its project of settlers colonialism, expelling Palestinians from their home, carrying the ongoing Nakba. The Nakba is an Arabic word for catastrophe, which is the 1948 creation of the modern state of Israel, is known to Palestinians as the Nakba. So this is from a New York university. This is from American soil. This is not from the Middle East. How about this one? This professor from California State University, Stanislaus. At least he's being honest. Let's give him that much credit. The real aim of BDS is to bring down the state of Israel. Justice and freedom for the Palestinians are incompatible with the existence of the state of Israel. Wait a minute. I thought you guys were looking for a two-state solution. They're not. They're looking for a one-state solution, the state of Palestine. Let me finish with those last two. This is Kristallnacht 1938 in Berlin. Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, is when many synagogues, Jewish-owned businesses were destroyed. The word Jew was written on the windows, on the walls, big stars of David to identify where the Jews were. I think only about 100 Jewish people, between 100 and 200 Jewish people died. It was not a massive number. It was bad, but it was not a huge number. But it's recognized by all historians as the starting date of the Holocaust. Kristallnacht, November 9, 10, 1938. I want to show something to you. This was about a month ago in Paris. Identifying Jewish homes. During the night, some people came to some districts of Paris and some suburb of Paris in the northeast, and they stenciled Jewish stars. Since then, some people have come and painted, and you might have seen those painted murals with those stars to make them look more friendly, to try to, make lemonade with a lemon, so to speak. But originally, this was to identify where the Jews live. Kristallnacht 2.0. This is like a month ago. I was in France when it happened. I was at a board meeting. This is what we're faced with. And of course, the worst of the Jewish hatred will be unleashed during the Great Tribulation. And I want to leave a few minutes for questions and answers, so I'm going to wrap this up. But in Zechariah 13, 8, and 9, you read about the 2/3. 2 parts in it will be cut off and perish, and 1/3 will be left in it. That's the end of the tribulation. The Jewish people are going to be suffering greatly during the time of Jacob's trouble. We know that. 2/3 will die, according to that verse. I wish that verse was not in the Bible, but let me give you the good news. There's good news in that verse. When God wants to give you specific numbers, the Bible is replete with numbers of all kinds. Specific numbers. Here, He gives us a percentage. Guess what? Percentage will always remain the same. 2-to-1. The numbers doesn't have to remain the same. The more Jewish people come to the Lord before the rapture, the smaller the number will be within that percentage. Does that make sense? Which means we really have to be intentional about sharing the gospel with our Jewish friends, because we want to take them with us in the rapture, if at all possible. I don't know how much more I have. I want to Tell you what, I want to stop right here. You're going to get the slides, and before I open it for Q&As for a few minutes, I want to say something. So I try to paint a picture of where we are. It's not going to stop. Real peace will not be coming to the world until the Prince of Peace, Shalom, comes, Yeshua himself, at the second coming. But we can do something again. That number of Jewish people needs to be reduced as much as we possibly can, and we need to be doing something. And I see October 7th as, I think we've turned another corner in our world history. And what I see, I've been doing some sort of Jewish evangelism for 30 years now. And what I see is that right now we have an incredible opportunity to reach our Jewish friends within the context of humanitarian efforts, to reach out to them and to help them and to give them a helping hand. Now, what we don't want to do is only humanitarian efforts, like some organizations, you see their ads on TV with the old lady crying and saying, send money right now, and I'm not going to name them, but you probably know who I'm talking about. It was said once, and I want you to pay attention to this, if you only do humanitarian efforts, basically you're sending a Jewish person to hell on a full stomach. We don't want to do that. We don't want to be singing louder, and we don't want to send a Jewish person to hell on a full stomach. So what's left? We have an opportunity right now to reach out to our Jewish friends. Jewish people globally, in America and everywhere else, are fearful. They're scared. They don't know where to go. They need to know that the Christians, some of the Christians, are there for them. So I want to make you aware of something, and you can come visit me at my table, and I'll connect you with that. There is a network of like-minded Christians who, for the last 3 years, has been developed, and basically it's a U.S. and actually some in the world too, connecting people who are basically saying, hey, my house is available if a Jewish family needs rescue and shelter. And we're looking at these people as the new righteous among the nations. Christians that are saying, like, you know what? I will not be a bystander. I'll open my house. I have a small house. I have a small apartment, whatever. So we put people in touch with this network. They get on the network, and then may we never have to use the network. But this is available. This is it's not on the web. It's not raising money. It's just a network of like-minded Christians who want to be available to help the Jewish community. Guess what? If you help Jewish people and you rescue them and you shelter them and you just go out of your way to do what needs to be done, then you earn the right to speak about why you're doing it. I'm doing it because your Messiah gave me a new life. I'm doing it because I'm born again because of your Messiah. And so you're not just doing it for humanitarian effort. You're doing it because you want to have a chance to help Jewish people. And in the context of that, you're doing it because of the gospel and with the gospel. Otherwise, it's not worthy of anything, especially in the days we live in. So that's where I want to really leave you with. I want you to pray about this. If there's something the Lord puts on your heart, come see me, and I've got a little card with a QR code you can scan, and that will take you to a form that will be sent to the network, and then you'll be contacted and you'll be given further instructions. Again, we're not taking, that network is not asking for money. We don't exist on the web. It's a very secret network, but I trust you. Shouldn't I? I hope I can. I need more people like you. So another thing, and I'm going to go pretty quickly here because I don't have time to finish, but I want to leave you with this one. If you want to scan this right now with your phone, if you pull your phone out and you scan this, it's going to get you to my page where you can, there's like 5 questions you'll be asked, and you can ask for my notes for free. You can get my daily devotion. You can get all my articles on end times, anti-Semitism, Israel, and that I post regularly on a weekly basis usually. So connect with this. This is for me. This is not for the network. Network, you got to come to my table before I leave tomorrow, so you have time, but do it soon. And of course, you have to, I don't want to take my books home, so come and get them, but come and buy them. But please connect with this because I have a lot to offer you. It's all for free, including my notes for today and a lot of other things. And try to subscribe on my YouTube channel, because that's where I put the most of my information. And I want you to subscribe, tell your friends, and please pray for me, because right now the Lord has put it on my heart to really work hard at mobilizing like-minded Christians to be ready to take in the Jews. This is where we are. May God help us. Thank you. Do we have time?
Okay, questions.
Thank you, Olivier.
Oh, Andy Woods is going to tell me I can't use this thing on the civil disobedience.
Yeah.
I give you credit, man.
Wow. The credit goes to the book of Daniel. It's right out of the principles are all from the book of Daniel.
Amen.
But anyway, really good presentation as always. One of the things that sort of surprised me since October 7th, the events, is the anti-Semitism coming from the right. I mean, the left, they're the left. I mean, you expect them to be anti-Semitic, but the right. So I just want you to update us, if you could, if you know. You mentioned Candace Owens. She's gotten worse. Can you update us on that? Well, before you do, a couple other names I want to get out here. And these are all people that are good on limited government. They're against the vax, they're against the mandates, but they've come out with these outrageous statements. A second guy whose Twitter feed I've been following is Stu Peters. A third name is Peggy Hall of the Healthy American. And then a fourth name, and a lot of people are going to get mad at me for even bringing his name up because they have him at their church all the time, Charlie Kirk. Okay?
Yeah.
So what can you tell us?
Well, I don't have a lot of details. There's a woman that was really anti-vaccine and everything, and she's gone berserk against the Jews. And I think it might be the lady that you mentioned. Okay, this is the way I look at it. Every day I get a ton of emails from reliable sources exposing all those things. And I'm at this place right now. I can't tell you what the latest thing that Charlie Kirk said, but Charlie Kirk, from what I understand, is also part of the New Apostolic Reformation. So, NAR. So, you guys are familiar with NAR, I'm sure. Yes. We're not going to go there today. We don't have time. But the New Apostolic Reformation, NAR, not a good thing. Not a good thing. So, but they love Israel. They just don't understand who we are. So all these people that Andy mentioned, from the left, from the right, from all angles, this is where I am right now. At my age, at my time in my ministry, I'd much rather spend a day with one person who's willing to really understand how they can make a difference than to spend a day with somebody who's not going to change their mind. So I leave them alone. And I educate the people that are willing to make a difference, because right now I truly believe that where it's at is being ready to help the Jews. And so I'm not going to spend, and it's not to go against what you said, but I'm not going to waste my time trying to defend a biblical position with somebody who's not going to change their mind. And I know they have a big audience, and I'd rather just quote what they say and tell people, this is what they say, this is not according to biblical principle, we should not go with that. Let me tell you what we should do. And I'd rather equip you on what you need to do than tell you why this guy is wrong. We don't have much time. So that's what I do.
Oliver, help me in Jewish evangelism. So I found myself next to a rabbi for 10 hours, and we've become friends over the last 5 years. One of the first things he started quoting to me were all the anti-Semites in the history of the church. If a Christian leader today, for instance, says one sentence, the Jews are a rotten and unbending people whose obstinance deserves that they be oppressed without measure or end, and that they die in their misery without the pity of anyone. Should we quote a pastor, extensive writer like that? Of course, that was written by John Calvin, a response to questions and objections of a certain Jew. So how do we quote men like Luther, Calvin, Augustine, sometimes heroes of the faith, and yet at the same time being sensitive to Jewish people and wanting to win them with the gospel. I'd love your comments.
Very carefully. That's how we quote them, very carefully. Now, I have nothing against quoting Luther or some of the early church fathers. I quote a lot of them in my book on end-time anti-Semitism. And what happened is that there is a history of some of the church fathers looking at Scripture allegorically and starting to develop this view that we now know today as supersessionism or replacement theology. And so a lot of what the church fathers did is wonderful. We don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I mean, they help us, not construct, but secure our faith and understand it. And so there's a lot of good that comes from the church fathers, but unfortunately we cannot ignore the bad that they've spoken. And the problem is that people have taken what they said and just basically put it on steroids and acted upon those words that were misinterpreted from Scripture. So what I would do is I would tell my Jewish friends, that, listen, they've taken the word out of context. A true Christian would never do that. And then your Jewish friend would probably say, well, your New Testament is even anti-Semitic because it talks about brood of vipers and your father the devil. And to that you can say, in the context of the Bible, when this was spoken, it was spoken to a sinner in need of redemption first, who happened to be a Jew second, but his ethnicity had no bearing on his sin. He happened to be Jewish, but the world has taken this and run with it. And to this day, I even heard at this conference in the last couple of days, a person saying, they were not saying it themselves, but they were quoting somebody saying the Jews killed Christ. It still goes. So we have to go back to the Bible, quote the Bible in context, and recognize that the church fathers did some damage in all the good that they did when it came to the Jews. That's a fact. And if you're not aware of it, then we are as guilty as the rest of the world in doing what we can call cancel culture and rewrite history. We have to know about it. I have this picture that I use in a lot of my seminars. It's a suitcase. And on that suitcase, it's got the stickers of all the countries, but it says, instead it says pogrom, Holocaust, Crusades, Inquisition, Luther, Black Plague, and it's on the ground and on the floor. And I tell people, as a Christian, when you come to talk to a Jewish person, you bring that with you. It might not be your suitcase, but you inherited the suitcase because by virtue of being Christian. So you need to, before you talk to your Jewish friend, open the suitcase and know what's in it and know how to defend it. Because when your Jewish friend says, what about the Holocaust? What about the Crusades? If you don't know what happened, then you're not equipped to come back in a loving, firm, gospel-loving presentation. So I don't know if it answers your question. But
Chrysostom, the golden-throated orator of the early church, around 380, preached 8 sermons entitled Against the Jews. And he kind of ended his last sermon by saying, if hating Jews makes you a good Christian, we are all good Christians. That's the kind of stuff you see. And really it started in the 300s.
Yeah.
We certainly wouldn't quote a John Piper or an Alistair Begg if they said something like that today. But somehow, I guess Luther and Calvin and these other guys, well, we quote them freely. And maybe we don't bring out enough some of their trash.
John Piper's mother is Jewish.
Yeah, there you go.
And by the way, if somebody tells you, why do you think Luther wrote this book of the Jews and their lies? I don't have an answer to that, but I can tell you, what's important is not why he might have written it. What's important is he wrote it. It's part of his life work, and what's important is how people acted upon it. He wrote it because he was old, he had Alzheimer, he didn't like the Jews, he had bad pizza the night before. I don't know. He wrote it, it's there, it should not be erased, it should be there and explained. But the reality of it is Hitler acted upon the writings of Luther.
Early in his career, he thought the Jews would be open to this different Reformed Christianity.
Right, without the Pope, without the... Yeah.
Right, and he became disappointed. And if I might have a good Jewish allusion, he was crying in his beer toward the end when he went anti-Semitic. within
I've
the
heard
last 3 years of his life. Okay.
I've heard that before, but when you hear it from Dr. Tommy Ice, you know it's the truth, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Thank you for making the world aware of all of this. I wonder if you could comment on few things. First of all, I'm sure you agree the double talk of our government is appalling. Kamala Harris developing a committee to fight violence against Muslims after October 7th. And then if you could comment on that. And then this term, innocent Palestinians, I think is very confusing.
What term?
Innocent Palestinians. So could you comment on the number of Palestinian civilians that were involved with the October 7th? Because I know Amir Zarfati has done a few things on that, and I wondered if you could comment more.
Well, I don't have, is it with any more? I don't want to interrupt you.
Oh, yeah, one more. Do you know of any Palestinians that are supporting Israel that you could let us know about?
I know personally of a couple of Arabs who are supporting Israel, but the only Arabs that I know, and I'd rather call them Arabs because Palestinian, we could do another 2 hours on, how Palestine was created from nothing, but I know a few Arabs of several different generations, not related, and the common denominator for them in supporting Israel is that they are believers. They have given their life to Jesus, and that's the glue, so to speak. That's kind of a weird way of saying it, but that's what keeps it together, is the fact that that Arab and that Jew have Jesus in common, and that's stronger than anything else. As far as the numbers, I don't know. And the first question you said about. See, that's the problem when you ask 4 questions. I forget the first 2.
Well, the civilians that were involved in the October 7th massacre.
You said Amir gave some numbers.
Not numbers, but he actually had video footage.
Yes, well, it was a mix. It was a mixed bunch of all kinds of people. I know more about what happened than really who was doing all the acts. I know that Iran is behind the whole thing. We know that, and I firmly believe, even though they all need to know Jesus, I firmly believe that this will not stop until Hamas is completely eradicated.
I agree.
And Netanyahu said it, I think, on October 8th or 9th. He said, "We did not start this war, but we will finish it." So,
thank you.
I can help answer part of her question about Palestinians that do
Could you get
support,
closer to the mic,
yes,
please?
I will, sorry. For Palestinians that do support Israel, Mossab, I'd highly recommend the book Son of Hamas. He has been speaking in support of Israel. He agrees with the elimination of Hamas. His father was one of the founders of Hamas, and he is completely against. He actually worked for the Shin Bet for 10 years.
Yes.
Undercover. He was called the Green Prince. You can look at a documentary on Amazon about him. There's also another gentleman. He wrote a book called Once an Arafat Man. He was Yasser Arafat's number 2 guy. And
are you talking about Tas Sada?
Yes.
Yes. I just remember his name.
Okay.
Yes. So, I met him several years ago, but the son of Hamas is a very good example, yes.
Yes. And Tassada, he talks about stories of where he threw grenades into the homes of Jews, and then he escaped because he tried to assassinate a prince, came to the U.S., eventually met a gentleman, put his hand on the Bible, was like shaking, and he couldn't understand why. He ended up becoming a believer in Christ. And he actually says, as a Palestinian, and he was there during the 1948 war, that is Israel's land because God said so. So I would highly recommend those 2 books. My question for you, I had a coworker. My mom has a huge love for the Jews, so I grew up hearing that. And he's from India, and he was like, he calls himself a Christian, but he's like, those Zionists. And I never fully understood that at first, and I was like, well, I mean, I know I'm a Zionist, so I started to do homework, and I'm like, I am a Zionist, that's right. That is Israel's land because God said so. So I started doing more research recently with everything that happened, and one gentleman pointed out that during the 1948, when Jews were actually coming back to Israel, that the Zionist movement wasn't really religious. It was more, they didn't, I won't say love God anymore, but they were like, forget God, we need to take care of ourselves. Never again, as we hear that. And they said eventually it evolved into it to be more religious, Christians participated in it and so forth. So I was wondering what you had to say about the historical part of that term.
Well, I have a whole presentation. I'm inviting myself for the next time, okay? It's called Zionism, What It Is and What It's Not. And if it ever fits the program, I'm coming back. Zionism, Zionism, there's this cultural Zionism, there's historical, political, and we here are more of the Christian Zionists or the religious Zionists. There's some religious Jews in Israel who are anti-Zionist, like a group called Neturei Karta. I think it means the keepers of the gate, and they are anti-Zionist. They believe that they should not be in Israel, should not be Israel until Mashiach comes, not returns, but comes. Of course, we know he's going to return, but they think that Israel is not yet Israel because Messiah hasn't come. So Zionism has a lot of different aspects, and it kind of, in the late 1800s, it kind of started moving. I mean, I don't have time to develop the whole thing. It would take too long. Maybe I can talk to you at my table or send you my presentation with all the research. But it's a fascinating thing. But let me finish on Zionism with this. God was the first Zionist. And that's good for me.
I love it. And I did have, one other question. It could be fast. And then one other comment. And that is the Jews who are supporting the Palestinians.
Yes.
That is blowing my mind. I've seen so many of them standing up in support of the Palestinians with what happened then. Absolutely horrid. And then just to quote John Haller, they want to go back to the 1967 lines. He says, let's go back to the 1967 BC lines. So
there you go. Thank you. Thank you. I don't understand the Jews who support Hamas or the Palestinian narrative. I don't get it. And there are some. They're not the majority, but there are some. And we probably need to wrap this up. It's 12 after. I'm here.
We'll let you know.
Oh, okay. Oh no, I'm fine.
Thank you so much. It's been an amazing session. I just wanted to ask you if you, because I think we can all benefit from hearing this, if you had to have the argument or give the rebuttal on something, what is your rebuttal to you can be anti-Zionist but not anti-Israel? And also, same thing, same type of response to the allegations, what's become normalized as Israel being an apartheid state?
Well, those are very simple questions. So let's take a break and come back for 2 hours. So the apartheid. What was the first question again?
How would you respond to somebody who says that you can be anti-Zionist?
Anti-Zionist, well, the problem with anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism is that if the person does not have somewhat of a biblical foundation or agreeing that we would have to use the Bible as a common denominator, it's going to be very difficult to have an argument, a constructive conversation with them. But if you take the Bible and then you look at how the land is God's land, to this day it's still God's land. It's His land. He's given the deed to Israel. But so we can walk a person through all the unconditional, eternal covenants made with the Jewish people and the land and all those different things. And I would say that I don't have a problem criticizing. I mean, I guess being anti-Zionist within reason. I would equate that to being allowed to criticize the Israeli government to an extent. And I do not support 100% the Israeli government on everything they do. I would have to, first of all, I would have to understand everything they do. They change every half hour. So, I mean, it's so complicated. But it's okay to criticize. But when you criticize and it leads to a point of denying the right to exist, that's not criticism. That's a call to genocide. So criticism is okay if it's constructive and if it's based on facts. But the anti-Zionists are usually not basing their criticism on facts. They're basing their criticism on a false narrative, and they're pushing that false narrative to justify genocide. So,
thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.